Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Church in Fall River, Massachusetts. And now we shall begin.
Welcome to this Unitarian Church in Fall River, Massachusetts. Let us
Prelude.
once again a warm welcome. Let us light our chalice today for peace in the world, and especially in Israel and Gaza. And let us not forget for the Ukraine. Please join me in unison opening words number 229 by William Schultz. 429. I'm glad you're on the ball more than I am. So together. Come into this place of peace and let its silence heal your spirit. Come into this place of memory and let its history warm your soul. Come into this place of prophecy and power and let its vision change your heart. Let us join together in singing our first hymn about peace, number 166, Years Are Coming. age and mercy, sees your golden ancient song. Years are coming when forever was red banner shall be full, and the age of peace be welcome, bring to joy a happy world. Here with song and glorious heralds, when the sword shall never rise, and the helmet, lance, and passion speak the blessed silent dies. Let us say together our affirmation of faith, which I think you must learn by heart. Oh, okay. Thank you.
471.
What is that for?
471.
Got it. Okay. Love is a doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God. Are there any announcements today?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you again for joining us this morning. Appreciate you being able to be here. And I want to let everyone know that next week, unfortunately, will be January 4th. So we'll just do it about once a year, but do come and make a fellows. Thank you.
Candlelight services Saturday evening, 23rd. No service on Sunday, the 24th of December. No service on the following Sunday either. So between the candlelight service, December 23rd, those services will January 2nd.
The reading today is from the works of Mozi, China, about 470 to 391 BC. And this is as printed in the front of the book called Nonviolence, The History of a Dangerous Idea by Mark Kurlansky. You can laugh at that. The dangerous idea, nonviolence. So all those years ago, Mozi wrote, "To kill one man is to be guilty of a capital crime. To kill 10 men is to increase the guilt tenfold. To kill 100 men is to increase it 100-fold. This the rulers of the earth all recognize, and yet when it comes to the greatest crime, waging war on another state, they praise it. It is clear they do not know it is wrong, for they record such deeds to be handed down to posterity. If they knew they were wrong, why should they wish to record them and have them handed down to posterity? If a man, on seeing a little black, were to say, "It is black," but on seeing a lot of black, were to say, "It is white," it would be clear that such a man could not distinguish between black and white. Or if he were to taste a few bitter things and were to pronounce them sweet, clearly he would be incapable of distinguishing between sweetness and bitterness. So those who recognize a small crime as such, but do not recognize the wickedness of the greatest crime of all, the waging of war on another state, but actually praise it, cannot distinguish right and wrong. So, as to right or wrong, the rulers of this world are in confusion. Let us be in the spirit of prayer and meditation and go inwards. I read the prayer by Thich Nhat Hanh from our hymnal. Let us be at peace with our bodies and our minds. Let us return to ourselves and become wholly ourselves. Let us be aware of the source of being common to us all and to all living things. Evoking the presence of the great compassion, let us fill our hearts with our own compassion towards ourselves and towards all living beings. Let us pray that we ourselves cease to be the cause of suffering to one another. With humility, with awareness of the existence of life and of the sufferings that are going on around us, let us practice the establishment of peace in our hearts and on earth. And now let us hold in our hearts the people of Israel and Gaza. May the hearts of the Hamas fighters be turned from war and violence to peace and reconciliation. Amen. So the sermon title is Blessed Are the Peacemakers. Recently, on October the 7th, were you shocked to hear about the atrocities committed in Israel by Hamas? First upon young people at a music festival, and later at a kibbutz, where many families lived in community. I was totally knocked off my feet. Hamas is a terrorist organization that, amazingly, in 2006, was elected by the 2 million plus people of Palestine, people of Gaza. I think you might know that after in 1948, when they created or recreated the state of Israel, they had to shuffle people around to create that state. And a lot of Palestinians, we're talking about millions of them, were pushed here to the west and pushed here to the east. And Gaza is that place, that narrow strip of land on the east side, bounded by the sea, and on the west side, it's called the West Bank. So we have 5 million people split across, and supposedly the same nation. That could cause problems. So the Gaza Strip, owing to its narrow, long piece of land, we talked about that. So Israel has responded with troops and weapons of war. And I will tell you that that army, that whole, all of those troops were initially trained by the British after World War II. 16,000 Palestinian people have been killed, but in that strip. But Hamas continues to fight back and evade capture, as they operate differently than an army. I felt as if a stone were in my heart for days. You might know that after World War II, the Jewish people were invited to re-establish Israel, to retell that story, following the terrible extermination of 6 million Jews by Nazi Germany. Jews had been buying land in Palestine since the late 19th century. They were called Zionists. The United Nations established Israel in Palestine. This meant that thousands of Palestinians had to move to make room for the state of Israel. What were they thinking? The Palestinians didn't go quietly. I remember as a girl seeing constant strife in that area of the world as hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were expelled. Really, this was a doomed plan from the start. There has been many conflicts over the years. I know I've told you before that I came to America from England in February 1967 to be a nanny to a Jewish family. I was 20. Jewish family on Long Island. It was thrilling to learn about Judaism by participating in the family Shabbat, Friday evening prayers at dinner time, then going to the Reform Temple with the family. Much of the service, except for the prayers, was in English. The young rabbi was fiery and humorous and really made the Bible live. So that was February. I continued going to the temple every Friday and looked forward to it. In June of that year, the family was in turmoil, having received the news that all the Arab countries had come together to push the Israelis into the sea. I could feel the terror of the Engel family. However, the Arabs were poorly equipped. Many had no shoes. The ones from Egypt had no shoes. The British-trained Israeli Air Force destroyed the airplanes of Egypt and Jordan before they got off the ground. And the war was over in 6 days. And they call it the 6-Day War. In more recent times, I learned about the plight of the Palestinian people, a people expelled from a homeland they had known for 2,000 plus years. Thousands of them have no home and have lived in refugee camps for 3 generations. These are the ones that didn't get inside the border. They were told to go to Jordan, go to Egypt. Nowadays, I have been unable to support either side. But lately, the suffering of the Palestinians whose homes are bombed out rubble, they're without homes and scrambling for food. The president of our Fairhaven congregation asked us on the website called Slack, why aren't we out protesting? Many people ask that. Why aren't we out in the streets rallying? I responded that we have a UU social justice organization that works for justice for the Palestinian people in the Middle East. What a complicated situation. And so it goes on. Oh boy. Let us take a cursory look at how some of the world's religions regard war and violence. The easiest thing is to start with Buddhism. Though Buddhism grew out of Hinduism with all its complexity, its beliefs are the 4 Noble Truths. Human life is suffering. How to overcome the suffering? Practice meditation. 3, engage in spiritual and physical labor. And 4, cultivate good behavior. This leads to enlightenment. But there is a code of ethics you might like to follow to help you towards enlightenment called precepts. The first of these precepts is refrain from taking life. And this is why you find many Buddhists are vegetarian. While the gods and goddesses of Hinduism are hardly peace-loving, ahimsa, non-violence, is the highest law, and this is what Mohandas Gandhi preached in the 1930s and 40s, to oppose the British occupiers of his land, India. He called it satyagraha, or truth force. He encouraged sit-ins, peaceful gatherings, boycotts, strikes, all of which are actions of persuasion. Peaceful actions of persuasion. The gatherings, boycotts, strikes, all of them. The cornerstone of nonviolence. As an aside, I thought that the Black Lives Movement during the pandemic was rather like Candy's movement. It was peaceful. It was peaceful. Martin Luther King Jr. held steadfast to his nonviolent movement, even though he was under great pressure to lash back. This was in the 50s and 60s. Was that persuasive? I think so, very much so. Were these blessed peacemakers? Yes, in my view. Stepping back into history, what did Confucius say about violence? We think that Confucius preceded Mozi in the reading earlier by about 200 years, in the year 500 BC. Confucius defined the function of government as providing food and troops and earning the people's confidence. Asked which could be suspended in hard times, he answered, "Dispense with the troops." This idea that military is essential to government, but less essential than other functions, runs through his work, his collected work called the Analects, that Reverend Richard told us about succinctly perhaps a year or so ago. Mark Kurlansky tells us in his book Nonviolence, The History of a Dangerous Idea, that if good men were to administer the government, this is back to Confucius. If good men were to administer the government for 100 years, violence would be overcome. I'd love to give that a chance. And when the question comes up about how to deal with the barbarians, the reply is, from Confucius, if the distant peoples do not submit, then build up culture and character, and so win them. And when they have been won, give them security. How is this for a non-violent, persuasive approach to peacemaking? However, 2 years later, Mozi was more like Jesus. He called for universal love and emphasized helping the poor. Mozi saw this concept of mutual love as the key to righting the world's ills. He emphasized what is also in Judaism, that we now call the Golden Rule: do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. So we see in these ancient teachings, long ago, they counseled peace, not war. Judaism specifies in the 6th of the 10 commandments, do not kill. That's clear, do not kill. Generally, present day excluded, Judaism does not celebrate military victories. They don't. The only celebration in Judaism is Hanukkah, and that focuses on the miracle of the flame in the temple, continuing to burn until the triumph of the Maccabees over those who desecrated the temple. But they concentrate on the miracle of the temple light. On the solemn Yom Kippur time, violence is among the sins for which to atone. Even Passover celebrates this escape from Egypt and has a moment of sorrow for the Egyptians who drowned in the Red Sea. I was very surprised that when I was invited to a temple that was meeting for Passover, they had this time when they held in their hearts the demise of all of those people who were killed in the Red Sea following them. Jews are instructed every year not to hate their enemy. They are taught that one day a perfect human being will come, the Messiah, and then the Jews will return to Israel for the Messianic age. History, the United Nations, though, altered that prediction. Though most religions shun warfare and hold nonviolence as the only moral route, some violent people co-opt societies and make peace impossible. These are the terrorist groups like Hamas. Their expressed intent is to make Palestine into an Islamic state in what is now Israel. Islam was formed by Muhammad, as you know, in the 6th century. Its stories are taken and adapted from Judaism and Christianity. And Jesus becomes a prophet, with Muhammad being the final prophet. Muhammad wanted laws that were fair to all people. He proclaimed a complete ban on violence to create the perfect society. And he did for a while, but he couldn't maintain the peaceful society and found he had to create armies. It is time for a joke. A Muslim cleric, a Jewish rabbi, and a Christian pastor walk into a bar. "We need to use your phone. There was an accident." "What happened?" asked the barkeeper. "We put up a sign that said, 'Turn back, the end is near,' and someone kept driving." "So?" asked the bartender. "Well," the rabbi said, "we should have written, 'Bridge out.'" So, about our Prince of Peace, Jesus of Nazareth. He has many teachings on peaceful behavior. Many Christian theologians agree that the most powerful of them are those given in the Sermon on the Mount, in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5. Of course, the Gospel of Luke also has it, but it's not quite as succinct as in the Gospel of Matthew. It begins with Jesus going up the mountain and then delivering what we've come to know as the 9 Beatitudes, meaning blessings of great joy. Each one begins with "Blessed are." And the 6th one is, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God." Following the Beatitudes are many suggestions about peace with your brother or sister or other person you may have offended. There's also encouragement to be truthful. In this chapter also is where Jesus advises we turn the other cheek when someone offends us. Here too he advises, love your enemies and pray for them who persecute you. So the would-be peacemakers are also urged to make peace with all of those around you, and not only with your family and friends, but especially with those not in your family and friends groups. So he's really asking us to widen our view, widen our hearts. When the disciples, especially Paul, who never met Jesus, if you remember, Paul was the one who received a message from Jesus on the way to Damascus. So Paul asked the disciples to go and to teach others and establish churches. Paul writes letters of encouragement to the churches to bring peace to one another and to reconcile differences. There was a lot of fighting in those congregations, struggling for power, disagreement over teachings. And you can see all of this in Paul's letters to the Romans, the Corinthians, the Galatians, and so on. By the way, it makes for good reading, and at this age that we are in, we're able to appreciate it, I think, much more. I mean, who doesn't have squabbles in their family, for heaven's sake, right? It's worth a read. They even greet one another with "Peace be unto you." I've always loved the passing of the peace in Christian churches, usually at the end of the service, but I notice that sometimes they begin with the passing of the peace, and it sets up a really warm, friendly, way of being with one another. Although when I walk in here, I see that warm, friendly way already established. But I think you're really saying when you greet people, I think you're really saying, may peace be with you. So how do we become peacemakers? We put our minds and hearts on it. Louise Diamond wrote a book called The Courage for Peace. She advises that we call forth from our own deep self, and we call it spirit of peace. So if we want to be more peaceful, we call forth that within us. She urges us to create a space of peace that we could go to either in our minds or in our lives. It can be even a place of peace we've created in our homes. We can go to this place or image of peace within and allow that experience to be part of our outer lives. It takes practice, but may be well worth it on a personal level. From our cursory look at some of the major religions, we can see that most counsel peaceful behavior on the part of the state. May we help our state, our country, to encourage a more peaceful world. I understand that we are now in conflict or supporting conflict in 20 countries around the world. Encouraging a peaceful world is sorely needed. Now is our time where we have an opportunity to support our church. So let the offering be received for the support of this fellowship and its work. This is our time for sharing joys and concerns. If you're holding a joy or concern in your heart, please feel free to let us know and tell us about it.
A big heart to announce our friend Debbie Ross died this week. She had singing with Kevin McIsaac for a long time, been married for years. Nancy actually introduced them, and they signed and very
I have enjoyed the sermons of Kathy Fitzpatrick, who's married to Dave Randy. As we know, she's still dealing with her passing of her husband. Trying to get in touch with them and to see if they want to do a candlelight on this December 23rd and light a candle for them. And just having prayers that Kathy needs our prayers.
I guess as a continuation of what you were speaking to, I wish my memory was as sharp as it used to be in terms of facts and figures, but I remember reading about a civilization, I think it was before Christ. It was a Buddhist empire, Southeast Asia, that existed for around 500 years in peaceful coexistence with all of its neighbors, utilizing Buddhist principles. And the demise of the empire actually was due to, I guess, a catastrophic change in weather systems, where I guess a series of severe droughts and then floodings occurred, so that there was an incredible reduction in food supply. And I guess the neighboring countries started to raid the outskirts, and long story short, the empire collapsed because outside forces came in and extracted those resources. So it became who had the strongest armies again. And it seems like in our history, at least in the modern age, right, our primary philosophy has been to make any kind of aggressive action against the state catastrophic to the person or the state that's making the aggressive action. The mutual assured destruction kind of thing. We're at that point now, right? And people are very comfortable, up until right about now, in our modern age, that was like the principle by which we organized ourselves, the superpowers. In my history, I guess, in my personal history, right, I kind of like, tilted at that windmill, and it was frowned upon, to say the least. But it seems like now we're approaching a point where we may be able to make that transition that you're speaking to, where the violence doesn't necessarily have to exist to stop an oppressor or a combatant or anything else from actually partaking in that violence. Because normally the violence, as von Clausewitz has always said, if it's state action, it's always been about resources. The violence has always really been about resources, and all the other things are pretexts for the violence. So in this case, like you're speaking to, the religion is just a pretext. They want their what they consider theirs back, right? And we won the war, World War II, and so they lost everything to begin with. So they're lucky to have what they have. I mean, that's the West attitude. And so put up with it. We put the Jews there. Figure out how to live with each other. I mean, we have Alaska, right? We're separated by we get along with Canada. We're not fighting over borders with Canada. I mean, you said, they're going to fight because they're separated. No, you can get along. You're going to want to get along, right? Part of the problem is they don't want to get along. I mean, one side doesn't want to. Anyway.
Thank you. Thank you. Very thoughtful.
One over there.
No, that's okay.
Well, let us sing our final hymn. Maybe it's the first Christmas carol for you? No? Okay. So this one was by a Unitarian Universalist minister in the 19th century. I think it was the 19th century. And it is one of the most beautiful hymns, I believe, and carols. So number 244 in your hymnal. And verse 3 pertains to the sermon. Upon the midnight clear, the glorious song, angels landing near the earth to touch their love above. Peace on the earth to all goodwill, from heaven news we bring. The world in silent stillness sing, to hear the angels sing. Silver the skies they come, with peaceful waves of fruit, and still their heavenly music floats o'er all the weary world. Is sad and lonely place, with the end unwavering gleam, and ever always bellward sound, the blessed angels sing. Wars of war and strife, the world has suffered long. Beneath the angels' reign have rolled 2,000 years of war. And we who fight the wars fear not the love song which they bring. Hush the noise of battle strong, and hear the angels sing. For lo, the days are hastening, on bright skies foretold, when with the ever-circling years around the age of gold, when shall over all the earth its ancient splendors bring. And the whole world give back the song which now